Good morning. I'm Justin Herring, and I am the head of DFS's Cybersecurity Division. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to be able to have you all with us as we discuss some of the key cybersecurity challenges that small and medium-sized businesses face and what you can do to address them. Today is the third day of DFS's Cybersecurity Symposium, which we are hosting to mark the fifth year anniversary of our groundbreaking cybersecurity regulation. The first 2 days are available. The recordings are available if you'd like to see those. They focused in the first day on cybersecurity regulation and cybersecurity challenges in 2022. And the second day focused on sort of the human elements of cybersecurity from diversity and leadership. Today, we're here to talk about cybersecurity for small and medium-sized businesses. This can be a daunting topic, really, for anyone or for any size organization, but really especially for small and medium-sized businesses who already have a tremendous amount on their shoulders. Unfortunately, cybersecurity is not something that anyone can really afford to ignore. Small and medium-sized businesses are targeted every day, and that's certainly something we see at DFS, and it includes New York's financial services industry. We live in a very interconnected world, which is a wonderful thing in many ways, right? It has opened up sort of knowledge, communication, commerce, economic activity. You can transact in many ways with somebody halfway across the world as easily as you can transact with somebody in your own city. Now, there are some downsides to that. And one of those is that you can also be targeted by criminals who are on another continent, right? And may never even come to your city or your country. And that reality means that all of us have to be prepared to address cybercrime. Today, we're going to focus on really the very practical steps that small and medium-sized businesses and really everybody can take to make themselves more secure. There are no silver bullets, like nobody is ever 100% safe. But the good news is there are practical steps that you can take that will protect you from the overwhelming majority of cyber attacks that we see directed against small and medium-sized businesses every day. You know, reading about cyber in the paper or hearing about it can easily give rise to a sense of cyber fatalism, right? You always see news or hear news about the most spectacular or dangerous attacks being launched by cyber criminals, sophisticated cyber criminals. And that's all real and it's all a serious threat. But the truth is, most of the cybercrime that's directed against American businesses, and especially against small and medium-sized businesses, is the same things over and over again, right? You see things like phishing attacks, right? Exploiting unpatched vulnerabilities. These are the kinds of attacks that happen over and over and over again. And the good news is there are specific security measures. We often call them cybersecurity hygiene, like the basics or the fundamentals of cybersecurity that can protect you from most of these attacks. And what we have dedicated today's session to do is to both helping to educate people about what some of those measures are and about giving them practical information about how they can actually implement them. And to do that, we've partnered today with the Global Cyber Alliance. Global Cyber Alliance is a nonprofit based here out of New York that focuses on free resources to help small and medium-sized businesses improve their cybersecurity. We've actually partnered with them in the past, and they really do a great job of bringing tools, educational resources, walkthroughs, how-to guides, checklists that can make the problem of implementing cybersecurity hygiene vastly easier and vastly straightforward, even for a technical layperson, somebody that doesn't have a technical background. And so in a little while, we're going to get started on some sessions with our partners in the GCA. The first one of those is going to focus on the cybersecurity toolkit that the GCA produces, which is modules that organize materials around the key subjects of cybersecurity that are designed to be used really by any business person, especially a small or medium-sized business person, and give you guides on how to set it up with your existing technology, how to bring in the new tools that you need. It's really a terrific resource. And we're also going to cover then some sort of real-world applications, right? Some case studies or some examples of how cyber attacks actually happen, so you can get a practical sense of what happens during a cyber attack and why some of these controls matter, why they're effective in stopping cyber attacks or limiting them once they happen, and what you can do if, despite your best efforts, you are attacked by a cyber criminal. And then finally, we're going to close with remarks from our superintendent, DFS's superintendent, Adrian Harris. But before we get to any of that, we're very excited to have our symposium today kicked off by a pair of guest speakers. Both of them are instrumental in New York State's efforts to protect consumers from cybercrime, fraud, and other risks. We have with us Senator Kevin Thomas and Assembly Member Nilly Rozick. And I'm going to start here by introducing Senator Thomas. Senator Thomas was first elected in 2018. He represents the 6th Senatorial District in Nassau County, which includes portions of Uniondale, Levittown, East Meadow, Garden City, and Farmingdale. We've at DFS have been fortunate to be able to work with him in his capacity as a senator, but also in his capacity as the chair of the Senate Committee on Consumer Protection. Senator Thomas is the first South Asian and the first Indian American to serve in the New York State Senate. So, Senator Thomas, I will turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Justin, for having me. Thank you for that kind introduction. Good morning to everyone on this webinar today. Thank you to Superintendent Harris for inviting me to this final installment of DFS's Cybersecurity Symposium. As technology advances, cybersecurity is becoming an increasingly important topic as consumers, legislators, and regulators seek assurances that data owned, stored, and used by businesses is subject to adequate safeguards. Back in 2019, I was successful in passing the SHIELD Act that talks about much needed protocols for businesses about their cybersecurity measures. Today, consumers especially want to know that the sensitive data companies have about them is safe. And they are seeking to do business with companies they perceive as protecting that data and caring about them. Some companies have the resources to hire outside consultants to help them comply with cybersecurity laws, regulations, or even best practices. Unfortunately, many small businesses are left to figure out cybersecurity on their own. And that's why I want to applaud DFS for focusing this final presentation on helping small businesses navigate the complex cybersecurity environment. It's critical that small businesses in New York have the tools and knowledge to implement best practices in the area of cybersecurity if they're going to compete with large corporations for consumer trust and brand loyalty. Once again, I want to thank DFS for doing this and my partner in the assembly, Nilly Rozick, who's also a major leader in this in her house. So thank you for having me, and thank you to all the attendees for serving New York State in this capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Thomas. We appreciate the remarks and all of your work in the Senate on these critical issues. Next, we have Assembly Member Nilly Rozick. She was first elected to the Assembly in 2012, and she represents New York's 25th Assembly District, which spans portions of Queens, including communities of Flushing, Queensboro Hills, Hillcrest, Fresh Meadows, Oakland Gardens, Bayside, and Douglaston. She is the chair of the Assembly's Committee on Consumer Affairs and Protection. She works on a range of consumer protection issues there, including cybersecurity. And she's also she was also the first woman elected to represent her district. And at the time she was elected, also the youngest woman to be elected to the Assembly. Thank you for being with us, Assemblymember Rozick. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us and all of the work that you have done in the Assembly on these issues.
Thanks, Justin, and thanks to the entire DFS team for putting this together. It's such a critical issue that truthfully does not get that much attention in government, and I think that we are in New York at the forefront of working on these issues, thanks to Superintendent Harris and her entire team making it a priority. And talking about, small businesses and keeping consumers at the heart of these issues. Consumers, as we know, increasingly rely on these things, on computers, and everything from shopping to communicating to banking and bill paying. We are all in a cyber world now. And while there are so many benefits to that, right? You and I know that, faster, more convenient services, for example. I know that for many businesses and for the consumers that rely on you, there also needs to be a conversation about being aware of the risks that are out there. And New York is here to help and here to partner with all of you. As we know, New York was the first in the nation with Part 500, and it played a role in revolutionizing how businesses treat data and data protection. And no business is too small to come into interface with that. We are, small and medium-sized businesses, and many of your organizations are the large targets for threat actors. And usually, other states have less protections in place, but in New York, we're at the forefront of it and want to keep our valuable data safe and protected for both the consumer and on the business side. And I'll end by just saying there are lots of great resources for small businesses, including what you've learned in the last 3 days, thanks to DFS and on their website. But certainly the Assembly's Consumer Protection Committee has a bunch of that on their website, and I will throw our website into the chat in a little bit. But you should know that we stand ready to help you with a lot of these issues, whether you care about cybersecurity or consumer protection and how they go hand in hand. And working with Senator Thomas, we will continue to work on these issues and make sure that when we're having these conversations that we bring all of your experiences to the table as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Nilly, or excuse me, Assemblymember Rozick. Appreciate you joining us today. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over now to my colleagues for our first workshop, right? And this is going to be focused on the cybersecurity toolkit that is developed by GCA for small businesses. So very briefly, let me introduce